As for tonight, it is Harris's running mate, Tim Walz. It's his big night. CNN's Kevin Liptak is joining us now. Before we sort of tick through the rundown of today, can you first tick through this massive amount of money that the Harris campaign has gotten overnight?
Yeah. The numbers are eye-watering, and it does give you a concrete sense of the momentum that they're heading into this convention with. You know, it's not a vibe that they're feeling, it's not a sense. These are cold, hard numbers that they are clearly enjoying the advantage over Donald Trump at this point. The Harris campaign ending last month with $220 million in their war chest. When you add it all up with all the affiliated entities, it's well north of $300 million. That's a sizable advantage over Donald Trump, and it does show you how the Democrats are now reestablishing this cash advantage that they had enjoyed for so long, really until the start of the summer. That had been eroded in the months leading up to President Biden's decision to withdraw from this race. And these numbers do show you that that decision has clearly re-energized Democratic donors. The Harris campaign, people familiar with their numbers, say they are coming close to raising $500 million in the month or so since Biden withdrew and Harris emerged as the Democratic standard bearer. So those are the numbers. They're interesting, of course. I don't know that they're unexpected. To me, what is far more interesting is how they're actually spending this money. We learned heading into this convention that they have already reserved $370 million in ad space. The majority of it, $200 million, is actually digital advertising. That's an inverse from how they were spending their money 4 years ago. And what it allows them to do is essentially take up all of the good spots in the fall, depriving President Trump of any of the sort of marquee advertising spots that will reach voters in the lead up to the election. Things like sports, the highly watched season premieres. They're even advertising on Fox News, at least during the day when they think there's some more moderate voters for them to reach. And so it does show you how they're using this massive cash advantage heading into the fall.
It is interesting how they are spending it. So you had the roll call last night. You were in the middle of it, like musical act, you know, shipping up to Boston for the Massachusetts delegation there. So much energy, Kevin. How will they top that tonight? What's the plan?
Yeah, well, the key speaker is going to be Tim Walz, the vice presidential nominee. He is, frankly, an unknown to a lot of Americans. Of all of her choices for vice president, he was the one that many people just didn't know. He didn't have a national profile. So his objective is going to be to rally the crowd and introduce himself, probably using some of that folksy humor that we've heard from him, this sense of a joyful warrior. That's what Democrats want to hear from him. We're also going to hear from former President Bill Clinton. He's delivering his 12th convention speech. He is, at this point, the utmost party elder. He's had some good speeches over the years. He's had some bombs. I'm thinking back to 1988 when he spoke for twice as long as he was supposed to, and people were walking out. He later said that it was 32 minutes of unmitigated disaster. What Democrats have turned to him to do in the last couple of conventions is try and explain things to voters, particularly the economy. That's something that they actually do need this time around. A lot of people don't understand what the Biden-Harris administration has been doing. You know, Bill Clinton is still a rock star in a lot of ways for Democrats, but I think it's fair to say that some Democrats have changed their views on him over the years. The party has just generally moved to the left on things like crime or trade. There are some, complicated views about the scandal that engulfed the end of his presidency, but I don't think there's any question that he will be very warmly received in the convention hall later today.
My first guest is Congressman Seth Moulton, Democrat from Massachusetts. He's also a Marine Corps combat veteran who served 4 tours of duty in Iraq. Congressman Moulton, thanks very much for joining us. I did want to ask you about Tim Walz. I mean, he's the big speaker tonight, the vice presidential nominee. He spent 24 years in the National Guard. As you know, some Republicans, including vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance, a veteran himself, accuse him of, quote, stolen valor, which is a very loaded term, falsely suggesting that he served in combat, that Tim Walz, said that he served in combat, which is not exactly the case. Some veterans find it offensive that one veteran is going after another. Where do you fall in all of this? What do you make of some of that criticism, and how should the governor respond tonight?
I think it's incredibly offensive. It's offensive to veterans. We shouldn't be denigrating the service of other veterans. We should be lifting them up, and we should be celebrating the fact that the Vice President of the United States is going to be a veteran from our recent wars. That's the first time in American history that we'll have an Iraq and or Afghanistan veteran, or a war on terror veteran, I should say, post 9/11 veteran on the ticket. And that's really something that we should be celebrating, especially at a time, by the way, when recruiting is down, when we need more people to be inspired to serve in the military. Each of these men served in important ways. Neither of them served in combat, but both served in important ways, and we should be celebrating that service. That's exactly what Tim Walz is doing, by the way. He spent a lot more time in service, 24 years. He understands how important all the different ways in which you can serve the country are, and he has been celebrating J.D. Vance's service. J.D. Vance, in contrast, is following in the footsteps of Donald Trump, a draft dodger who avoided serving in Vietnam, who has denigrated veterans his entire time in politics, from attacking John McCain to calling World War II veterans losers and suckers. I mean, J.D. Vance is just following in the footsteps of this draft dodger to attack Tim Walz. It's shameful.
Well, new this morning, Politico is reporting that 50 Republicans in Congress, all military veterans, have issued a blistering letter to Walz. We can show a little bit of this. It bears the letterhead of the Trump-Vance campaign. It says, quote, "You have violated the trust of our brothers and sisters in arms. Their blood, sweat, and sacrifice are the only reason our nation is able to exist. Until you admit you lied to them, there is no way you can be trusted to serve as vice president." What's your response?
How did he lie to them? I don't understand. I mean, the one accusation that he said he carried a weapon of war in war, he should have just used a different single word: during a war, not in the war. He wasn't actually in the war. And let's be clear.
Harris' campaign has said he misspoke.
He misspoke. Yeah. One word. 24 years of service you're going to denigrate and throw out because of one misspoken word? I mean, that's shameful. Every veteran on earth, myself included, has said some words that were incorrect in our lives.
And I do want to switch gears a little bit. Something that former President Donald Trump said yesterday, getting back to the conversation about the Obamas. I don't know if you saw this, but the former president now says that he likes Barack Obama, Michelle Obama. Let's listen to that.
I like him. I think he's a nice gentleman, but he was very, very weak on trade. But I happen to like him. I respect him, and I respect his wife.
What did you think of that?
I think he's finally getting some good advice. But look, this is not Donald Trump's character. Donald Trump hates veterans. He hates the Obamas. I mean, he hates anyone who's opposed to him, because that's what bullies do.
And I do want to ask you, you very much were on the side of things that President Biden should step aside, make way for a new nominee. That has happened. In the Boston Globe, you wrote an op-ed, and it said this: "This is bigger than one president or party. It's about America. Let's win this election, Mr. President, and in the process, ensure you have the legacy you deserve." I'm not sure if the president exactly followed your advice, but he did step aside. How has the party handled this? And do you think that this passing of the torch has happened? It's now Kamala Harris's party.
Absolutely. I think it's been extraordinary. I think the party has handled it well. Remember, 65% or so of Americans didn't want either Trump or Biden to be the nominee. One party has responded to that call for change, and we have a new nominee. The energy, the excitement, the hope that you feel here in Chicago simply wasn't even in the cards 4 weeks ago. And I was glad that President Biden, when he gave his speech, he said something really important, which I also said in that op-ed, which is, "This is not about me." That's a Marine phrase that I put in that op. I said, "You have an amazing job and an amazing legacy, Mr. President, but this is not about you. It's bigger than you. It's about the country. It's about the party. It's about the future of America." He said that in his speech, and it's really propelled us forward.
All right, Congressman Seth Moulton, thanks very much for your time. We appreciate it.